Hi, and welcome to today's video. Today we will be looking at quadratic equations and inequalities. To solve a quadratic equation, we use the idea that if a times b is equal to 0, then a or b is equal to 0. So the first thing you do is write the equation in standard form. Ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Next, you factorize the equation and let each factor be equal to 0. And then you solve for the unknown value. In the case of a fraction, multiply throughout by the lowest common denominator, and then solve for the unknown. But remember to reject any invalid answers. Here you have two examples of factorization without a fraction and factorization with a fraction. Feel free to pause the video to look through these two examples and really understand what it is that's going on. Next, we look at solving quadratic equations by substitution. First step is to let the common expression be equal to k or any variable that is not the unknown that you are solving for. Next, you substitute the variable into the original equation. Find the LCD, lowest common denominator, if you have a fraction, and then factorize the equation and solve for k in this case. Remember to substitute back the common expression because we are looking for the unknown and not for k, and check that all solutions are valid. Here we have an example of that. Feel free yet again to pause the video and really understand what it is that we are doing. Solving quadratic equations by squaring both sides. First thing you need to do is to isolate the square root, which is the radical, and remove the root by squaring both sides. Write the equation in standard form and solve for the unknown. Remember to check for the solutions by substituting them into the original equation because it can happen that one or both of the answers are unapplicable. Solving quadratic equations by completing the squares. This is by far the most complicated, so be careful and do this step by step to ensure that you do not make a mistake. First step is to write the equation in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. Second step is to make a equal to 1 by dividing throughout by the a value. If the a value is already 1, you can skip this step. The third step is to transpose c, or to move the c value to the other side of the equal sign. Remember to change the sign when you do this. The fourth step is to complete the square by adding half the b value raised to the power of 2 to both sides so that you don't change the equation. And the fifth step is to then find the perfect square and write the equation in standard form and solve for the unknown is the sixth. So this takes a bit more time and a bit more understanding and concentration, but it is just as simple as the others when you get a hang of it. So practice, practice, practice. Next is solving quadratic equations using the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula was actually found by completing the squares, which we did just in the previous slide. So on the side here, you can see just how that came about, and then using the quadratic equation, you start by writing the equation in standard form and finding the values of a, b, and c. Next, you write the quadratic equation and substitute the values of a, b, and c and solve for the unknown. Please note the quadratic equation is x equals negative b plus minus root b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. Simultaneous equations. Simultaneous equations are basically when you're asked to solve for two unknowns at the same time. So the first thing you do is make one of the unknowns the subject of the formula, but try to avoid fractions where possible. Next, you substitute into the other equation and solve for the unknown, and substitute that unknown into the first equation to find the other corresponding. Lastly, we're looking at quadratic inequalities. First thing you do is write the equation in standard form and factorize. Then you find the critical values. These are the values that would be equal to 0 were this a normal equation. And then after finding the critical values, you can represent the information on a number line. And then write the solution as an inequality or using interval notation. Please note you have to remember the signs, the greater than or equal to, greater than, less than or equal to, less than, and equal to signs. These will help you decide which parts, if I can say, between the critical values are applicable to the equation at hand. So yet again, you need to practice, practice, practice. So remember to subscribe, share this video, and like this video if it was helpful to you. Thank you.